The DIYphysio technique in this clip is for our diaphragm. So it's a manual technique that I would typically do on someone else, but of course, since we're not trying to touch as much, I want to teach you how to do it for yourself. Our diaphragm, as many people are already discussing, plays a key role in regulating our nervous system. It of course plays a really key role in regulating our breath, and of course our breath and our nervous system are closely linked because of our diaphragm. One thing that not as many people discuss is that yes, our diaphragm is a respiratory muscle, a muscle for breathing. It is also a muscle for posture and stability. So like to our pelvic floor muscle down at the bottom, our breathing diaphragm muscle up top plays a very supportive role for keeping our spine upright. Very important role for our rib position. So when we become overly tense or our diaphragm muscle becomes quite short, it can change our posture. It can lead to discomfort above, below. So it really is important to sort of maintain this, but it's also important to, as you do this exercise or this manual release, to be very tender. And that is because it can be uncomfortable to press through. We don't do this as much. So when I say be very tender, it's being very delicate, being very gentle, being very kind and compassionate, I guess you can say, is that you don't necessarily need to be pushing into the pain. You can press to notice, but you don't need to push into it. So you'll know as you start pressing what I'm talking about. We're going to be using the pads of our fingers, and you're going to start up top where our ribs meet, and you're just going to press lightly, very lightly here. So you don't need to push here very hard. Take a breath. And then step your fingers apart. So now, as you are on your first set of ribs that we're going to start going through, what you want to be doing is first you feel the rib bone, then slide your fingers down, and then push up just slightly, very slightly. You'll notice that it's challenging and it can be quite obvious already. As you're here, take a few breaths. Now release, step wider. Same thing, pressing slightly up. You'll have more space here. Tends to be a bit more free of ribs in this space, so you can start to hold and breathe again. And then release. Take it wider. Here can start being difficult. We don't tend to have as much mobility down here. So you can soften, you can lean back a bit, hold, and breathe. And release. That could be enough for many people. If it wasn't, like you didn't really notice any points that were obviously or slightly uncomfortable, you go to the next technique. This time, it's one hand. You use 2 fingers, you can use 3 if you need, but you're going to start with just one hand pressing into that same spot, but underneath so let's go. Middle, 3 fingers wider, then pressing down. Other hand is what is using your force. So my hand over here is pushing my bottom hand in and up. In that position, it is obvious that there is some resistance, and I just take light breaths. And then release. Move down. Same thing. Top hand presses your bottom hand in, slightly up. I just got a crack on my neck. Small breaths. step over again. Pressing down, slightly up, very soft, and breathe. So when I'm saying very soft, I'm really alluding to the fact of how you're pressing, or the intention of pressing. You want to be pressing soft, like, I don't know, like you're putting on a new baby's shoe. You don't want to tie it too tight, you just want to be nice and soft. Now on to the other side. Remember, 3 fingers step over, turn, top hand presses the bottom hand, press in, slightly up. Take a few breaths. Release. Step down. Press in, up. Take a few breaths. Release. Step down again. Press in and up. Few breaths. And release. Finish off. Nice patting of your belly. Letting your diaphragm relax, expand, settle downwards, and even letting your belly hang out. So remember that all of the sucking in and up adds to this excessive tension in your stomach and in your diaphragm. Relaxing, letting yourself settle down, gives this ease through both your diaphragm and your stomach, which can impact on your back, your hips, ribs, etc., all along the chain. I know it might not look the best, but just remember, it feels really good. So build on that principle. If it feels good, practice it. If it doesn't really feel good, why are you practicing it? That's the question really to ask.